So anyway, what I was going to talk about was entropy. So I've been thinking of a couple things and making a few different videos, so I'll just do them all at once. So yeah, racism and race in America. It's just funny, there's so much PC current and counter PC current. Now, I was at Berkeley when the word PC started to come out. It was before it hit the rest of the country. And I was against it because my liberalism is anti-dogmatic. Politically correct just reeks of dogma, and sure enough. So anyway, what I was going to talk about was entropy. That's what it's been. On the other hand, it's a better dogma than the one we had before it, so until we get actual skepticism and free thinking so-called into the world, I mean, if I have to compare dogmas, I've seen worse in my lifetime. So anyway, what I was going to talk about was entropy. But I'm not exactly for it. But then there is always reactionary forces, and political correctness is reactionary probably in the first place, and then there's anti-PC reaction, which is reactionary in the second or third place. So, for example, Flexican is like, just say black. Well, I was talking about African Americans because I wasn't just talking about black people. I was talking about race in America. Now, a lot of people, the jurors and stuff, said, oh, it wasn't racial, the Zimmerman trial. Well, there's racial aspects. Now, on the one hand, I totally agree with the idea that the profiling wasn't racial. It was influenced by race and age and other things. But I was profiled. I wore hoodies when I was a kid, and I, raised by hippies and baby boomers, and they were young and, long-haired and hoodie and sweatpants and stuff. I got profiled many times, in toy stores and here and there. So, I feel I understand how... So anyway, what I was going to talk about was entropy. Any working class kid could have been profiled. And these days, since all sorts of kids dress working class, really any kid could be profiled. As for, but Zimmerman would save a family. Well, it's not like he's a serial... It's not like he's that Ariel Castro dude. Sorry. That is looking to victimize people. No, he's just putting people in his simple-minded little cubby holes, reacting to it. Putting people in his simple-minded little cubby holes, reacting to it. And you shouldn't... People like that can be productive to society. You shouldn't just let them get too far, right? Where they have guns and stuff. Like Zimmerman with the taser. Okay, so a few extra people get tasered. I could deal with that. So anyway, what I was going to talk about was entropy. But the racial aspects is just like, you just look at the comments. I mean, there's a lot of people going, well, it's because African Americans are just, well, I guess they're saying all black people are extra violent. So anyway, what I was going to talk about was entropy. I was talking to Matt about this. Entropy and information. There's really interesting stuff going on in the last few years about entropy and information, right? Because entropy, all right, now, I took physics at Berkeley, right? So when they taught me entropy, I thought, well, all this philosophical bullshit they're telling me about entropy, because really it's this like summation of all the motions of all the parts in there. But there is philosophical importance to it in natural philosophy, but it's nothing so simple as a measure of disorder. Okay, now, quantum information theory has a lot to say now about this, and there's an interesting debate that became famous. I mean, it involves Stephen Hawking. But before that, entropy. So often, it is like the disorder, something where if you have a gas that's hot, the things are moving around all crazy in there, and some are moving slow and others are moving fast, and the slow one gets hit by a fast one, and everything's changing a lot. It'll have a high entropy. And this is the notion of it having to do with disorder. But things don't heat up over time, they cool down, right? But the disorder, the lack of a cohesion, the lack of a system this is what they're trying to, in studying temperature and gases and volumes versus pressures, they came up with this concept, and we've always had a hard time actually wrapping our head exactly around it, even as we got more and more mathematical hooks into the concept. Okay. So entropy. It's just kind of saying that if things are sitting in an ordered way, they're going to get disordered. If you have an ice crystal, it's going to get uncrystallized. Even a regular crystal, this is going to have, when the crystal's forming, sure, it's forming, there's a weird situation, but just in nature, it's going to start losing molecules. It's just like, if you transmit a signal along wire, it's going to get noise in it. Things are going to get this disorder, right? They're going to, a so-called random effect that isn't necessarily random at all, in the sense that information is never lost. And we'll get to that. Or maybe we won't. Maybe only I will. But maybe I won't. Anyway, where was I? Oh. I'm going to take another drink. So anyway, entropy, interesting topic. And the general idea that entropy has to increase, interesting, except for life forms, of course, are exactly what defies that. So, you have this physical quantity, and in some sense it's related to the disorder of things. Now, in quantum information theory, it's become literally the uncertainty of a measurement, right? So if you want to measure the location, if you're going to guess, not the uncertainty, that's kind of what Wikipedia would say, but what Susskind from Stanford and Seth Lloyd of MIT are talking about is that entropy is information, right? But it's kind of the inverse. It's information you don't have, right? And this view makes information physical. It means that the universe is a quantum computer. There is no distinction between computing and physics when it's quantum computing. And this makes a lot of sense when you think about it in one sense, because the mechanistic nature of the universe is where we got the idea for computing, that things have consequence. So since physics is quantum physics, it turns out that the universe acts like a quantum computer. Not that it was built as a quantum computer, right? Or, and mostly it's computing things nobody would care about, where quantum computers we would build, we would design them to compute things we cared about. But still, there's a lack of a distinction. Things go to their consequence. The way they do it is quantum physics, and that's called a quantum computation. When it's for something useful, where you get a result you were planning to hopefully get, that's quantum computation that we've controlled and mastered in that case. And in this view, so entropy starts to mean the outside world. It's things you don't know but you believe are knowable. It's about the substantial nature of the universe. Things you don't know that you think are out there to know. That's entropy. Things that are out there to know that aren't real, that you'll never know, fantasies and stories you'll never hear that haven't even been made up, not a part of the entropy. It's the information that really is out there. So here's, for example, an interesting point. So entropy. Let's say you have a chamber, a little tiny hole, and you could put a thermometer in there to find out what the temperature is in there. Assuming the thermometer, is cool, or you don't want to heat the environment, you put it in there, and it absorbs photons, and you pull it out and you see what the temperature is. Okay, that's a measurement. You got information about the state inside there, and you also reduced its entropy. Why? Because the entropy is all the particles moving around. Well, you cooled it. Why? Because you took energetic photons that were absorbed by the thermometer and you pulled them out. And who was it? Seth Lloyd, or was it Susskind was talking about in your computer? Why does your computer heat up? It's because when it has memory and it overwrites new things in the memory, you load something into the memory, To overwrite the previous data requires throwing away information. Information is energy. It's entropy. So you're throwing out entropy, that's heat. So your computer heats up. The information is the energy. Right now, if you put a thermometer in a heated vessel, you're not going to reduce the entropy by much, but just a little bit, and in principle you can understand it. But look at it this way. Let's say you wanted to know, this is how, you've got this vessel, it's got a hot gas in it, and you want to know where every single particle of gas is moving in there. To do that, you'd have to go put a detector in front of each one and say, oh, this one's moving here, this one's moving here. And what would you do? You'd stop them. It's like putting up a target and shooting a bullet to see where the bullet was. And you go, oh, there's where the bullet was. The bullet isn't there anymore. It got stopped. It fell here. It did something else after you interfered with it. Well, if you put detectors up in front of every particle in a hot gas, you'd stop that particle and you would cool the gas. You would take its energy out into information. So the other thing is that people just are in denial about the fact that that there is this profiling. And me as a young white dude, me as an adult white dude, if I'm going to look all scrungily or whatever, where I'm going to invite profile, say by the police or whomever, by a group that, I don't know, can influence me in some way, or try to, or maybe I just don't like people thinking about me, or whatever is going to influence me in terms of getting profiled. As a white guy in America speaking normal English, I can cut my hair and shave myself and dress different, and boom. But the thing is, when you're a kid, when you're a teenager, I didn't really feel I had that choice. I just was who I was, and my parents were who, and it's just everything happened the way it happened. It's not till you're older that you decide, oh, I could look clean cut in a moment, and then I won't have that problem. And by then it's like, fuck that, I am who I am, you're supposed to accept it, this is America, man. But there is this element, because for people that are like, why are people always thinking this about me? Oh, it's because I have this kind of beard, or it's because I wear this kind of thing, or it's because I've got a tattoo here, or whatever. African Americans don't have a chance to just get out of that. I mean, like that professor that got arrested for home invading his own house. You know, you are going to face that, and it's just crazy that people act like, no, that didn't really happen. It's just like people on YouTube, like, oh, the women aren't really getting harassed. What? You have to, on purpose, not be paying attention and have, it could be subconscious on purpose, but a big blind spot because it is so fucking obvious. You don't have to go see people's inboxes, women's inboxes, African Americans' inboxes. You can see it in their comments. Right? I'm willing to grant that, like, Zimmerman support's not all racist, and George Zimmerman's not racist. He's just a cubbyhole, closed-minded little Barney Fife danger to society. But it's not really about racism. But look at the comments. There's a lot of the thoughts are about racism. And there's a lot of people that are like, well, of course Trayvon attacked him. He's black. Well, if Trayvon did it, that's not why. People don't understand the entropy of a situation of when you're trying to judge an individual. What is the entropy of trying to make an assessment about an individual? Right? If you can imagine two strangers walking up to you, one is black, one is white, and you have to make a decision of who to trust. It's the beginning of Naked and Afraid, and you have to decide based on that. And you're going to base it on their skin color. Well, you're stupid, because there'd be a lot of other better things, like look how they dress. Do they look prepared? What's the expressions on their faces? Right. There's a lot of entropy in trying to make a judgment, a prediction about someone based on their race. Why? Because the bell curves are like this, and if there's any difference, the next one is just almost totally overlapped. You know, so the peaks might be a little bit far apart, but there's a huge number of people that are still beyond the threshold of the median of the other group, whichever group has the more advanced median. And it just seems like people don't value the individual, and this is really what what the entropy and information theory, quantum information theory seems to be getting to, is that we have this issue between making predictions and what the individual case comes out to be. The uncertainty is twofold. One, in your predictions, how close do you expect to be, and you can never know. It's just a probability. If you take 1 million samples, how close on average will you be? And there's an uncertainty when you take the measurement, because you can't get the measurement right, and these issues are related. And if in an individual, it's like the word event means outcome, more or less, in Latin, right? Comes from. But really, we have a distinction that we have to worry about. An event, an outcome is like heads or tails. The event is flipping the coin, right? Now, racism comes in and says, well, I know when I'm flipping the coin, the outcome, because I'm flipping the coin because of the event. The event is the outcome, which is just this old view that doesn't work, right? Now, furthermore, what they figured out is the maximum amount of information that can be stored inside a black hole is basically the same amount of information, the exact same amount of information that can be stored on the surface using each Planck area as a bit. So you see how that all comes together, I'm sure. All right, cheers.